All right, Fiberistas. Hey, happy Wednesday. Welcome to my live cast. I'm Stacy Budge Camison with UrbanGypZ, and today I am. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to turn the volume down over here. I'm on my handheld today because I'm going to be walking around. Let me make sure I can turn that off. I'm going to be walking around the studio sharing with you some of my ideas of storage. And let me just say, storage. Whoops. See, I knew it was going to happen. Hold on. There we go. All right. So, um, as you know, that I'm working on the embellishments class, and I'm getting inspired to do some stuff. And my storage stuff all started with at the beginning of this month. After I got done with the art yarn warps class, I kind of needed to revamp the studio as I was getting ready to do some weaving because, when I first moved into the studio, I wasn't doing a lot of weaving. I was doing more knitting and crocheting, and my yarn was kind of set up for that kind of project. As I started to do more freeform stuff, I needed to be able to see my yarn kind of better. I had things kind of stored in bins, and that's great for when you're knitting, but when you're doing freeform weaving, you kind of need to see your stuff, or at least I do. Um, so, uh, and I'm gonna put a link to in the show notes to the two videos where I talked about. I did some live casts where I shared with you the studio reorganization in progress. Now, granted, there's still a little bit of stuff that I haven't got put into place, but for the most part, it's workable and it's kind of working for me. So here's what I've got going on as far as the yarn goes, and mind you that right now the yarn's kind of just put out, and what's going to happen at some point, I'm going to have to get a couple of big tables out and kind of put the yarn in a way that it makes sense for me. And makes sense for me is kind of relative. I worked at a yarn shop in downtown Asheville at one point that had um, they had their yarn organized by color. Some people walked in and they loved that, but some people walked in and they hated it. It just kind of depends on how you needed to find your yarn. And for like real right brain, freeform kind of creative knitters, that worked. The color worked out great. But most people wanted to find things by weight and brand, and that's how most yarn shops are set up. So it just is kind of relative. But when you're working in the studio, if I was a knitter, I would want to have all of, and I'm not, if I was doing project based, I'd want to have my clumps of yarn, in kind of put away into projects. Actually, let me show you this. So, yeah, as I still do a good bit of knitting, but my knitting projects are in this thing, and they're each kind of in their own individual bags. Some of these are languishing, we're talking years. And then I have another one down here. The only project, oh wait, I've got this project up here. This is a sweater that's like actively in progress. And this is an Afghan that I'm crocheting that's actively in progress. And I've got, coming back over here, and I've got my, right here, that's the bin. I've got a lot of my worsted weights in there because that's what I like to use. I'm working on a big granny square blanket, and I also have some freeform crochet stuff, and that's the stuff I like to use for that. But otherwise, okay, so as far as the weaving goes, as you know, this is my loom right here. Okay, that's my big loom. And then I've got the bench that I share, and then I've got my table loom here. Now, I have some other tables that I can put here and then fold this loom up if I need to do like some drum carding. I've got my carders right there. Okay, so here's how I've got it organized. For me, I have weaving yarns here where I can see them. And then I've got weaving yarns here where I can see them. And this is where I wind bobbins for my boat shuttle. I also have all of my popsicle sticks here. And if I need to spread them out, then I put them either on this cart or I would make room on that table right there and put them there. And I also have this bin of like smaller yarns, like little balls of stuff, as well as this is the bin with my dreads in it. I don't know if you can see down there. And then I've got this interesting, this is like a treasure bin. But, you know, if I were, you know, what I might do is just take a bunch of stuff out, because for me, working creatively, I like to have things where I can see them. And it might be that I won't use the stuff. If you are subscribed to my art yarns class, you'll see where I had a freaking table full of yarn and really only used a handful of them, but all those yarns together were inspiration. So that's kind of how I work. And I also have this hot mess of 3 bins up here, as well as these bins down here. They go all the way underneath here. There's some white. These bins down here. So I've got that stuff, and it's really the yarn. I'm trying to get good light here. So really the yarn is set up to where it's to where I can see it. And like I said, that's because the way that I weave and do that type of stuff is I kind of go in the moment and I pick up yarns, you know, that I'm working with. I don't have necessarily a set colorway that I might pull in different colors at different times. So having the yarn out is what works for me. But again, you know, as far as stuff like, you know, knitting projects, you know, keeping those in kind of stored away and pulling out the project as I'm working on it, that works for me fine. All right, I gotta look at my notes. So yeah, so that's the new setup for yarn. There's some other things that I've been working on though, as far as like I'm working on this embellishments class. Well, the embellishments class is kind of taking that the weaving that I do, the freeform weaving, and adding things on top of that weaving that's going to give that piece some composition. And I'm using, excuse me, itchy nose, sorry. I'm using the embellishments to add some composition, and mostly I use embellishments on my wall pieces, but you can embellish like wearables and stuff like that. Composition doesn't matter as much as texture, but as far as wall art goes, and I'm using a lot of embellishments for that. So I've got some stuff. Then the way I store some of that stuff, here's some examples of 3 little jars of embellishments, and I kind of keep them here just because as I'm weaving for now, these aren't embellishments that I'm using necessarily right now on pieces, but they're things that I created with clay from the clay studio that I want to incorporate, but I haven't really incorporated these yet. And so I kind of keep them here. Now where I'm storing these in, these are my ugly mugs. These are mugs that I made where I'm testing out some techniques or some glazes, and they're not, I mean there's a lot of mistakes in them, and that's fine, but you know, I like them. I mean, I would never, I don't know, I might break down and use them at some point, but for the most part, I just use them here. I also have, this is interesting, this back to a little bit of the yarn. This is actually stuff I use, let me find a place for these. I have all these bobbins I have yet to skein up. All right, I've got this right here. This is a bunch of, these are like thrums or loom waste even, or even little bits of, you know, here's a little piece of thread. This is what I call my little treasure bowl. And this is a crystal bowl. It's a trifle bowl. I think we got it as a wedding gift. and I never make trifles. So, or tiramisu or anything like that. So I kind of hijacked the wedding gift, and I'm using, I mean, this is a great bowl, and I'm using it for my little stash of thrums. Now, this stuff, what I'll do is I'll cut it up into smaller bits and cart it into my bats, and it adds a little bit of texture into my bats. All right. So another thing that put that right there. So another thing that I also do is I keep my art journals out. I was keeping them kind of on a shelf stowed away or in a bin underneath my desk, and I wasn't using them. I mean, some of these go back. This is from January of 2018, and here's some notes on the glazes for some pieces that I did. You know, but also just like a little drawing. I mean, just this is what I do. I'll do, you know, just some colors and just adding washi tape and shapes and stuff, and I might go back and use this stuff as ideas for mixed media art. All right, so I've got journals, finished journals here. These are journals in progress. I also keep things in jars. I've got button jars. I've got all kinds of buttons. Everybody has a button jar, I'm sure. I mean, if you ever sewn or had a grandma who sewed, this is my button jar. And I couldn't tell you where half these buttons came from. I think at one point I collected them. I mean, I want to say that I even got like a batch of buttons from Etsy at one point. So yeah, so I keep button jars. All right, so otherwise, storage solutions. I've got up here, and this is this is where I keep beads and jewelry stuff, and I keep it there for now. But again, if I'm going to be working with stuff, I like to take things out. And the same here. This is a cabinet of just art supplies. But if it's stuff that I'm going to be, you know, that I need to use or for inspiration, I'll pull it out. All right, so let me take you back over to the drafting table. So, Jerry's in the way. All right, so here I am at what I consider my creative space. This is an old drafting table. I'm an old school graphic designer. I learned to do graphic design on something very similar to this when I was in college. And then I got this from one of my mentors. Anyway, but this is a drafting table that I like to work on. And for the most part, if you can see around the edges, I've got, you know, I'm a big crystal and rock person. And I keep stuff here, and I find that stuff is really inspirational for me, as well as right now, I mean, you might have seen this picture. This is some of the embellishments that I might add to a piece soon, and right now I have things out. I've got all these shirt buttons that somebody gave me, and these are really cool, you know, when I have a bunch of them together. Right now, the big bag of them is in that cabinet I showed you. But for now, I have a bunch of them out because I know I'm going to use them on my piece. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to use them on my piece, but it's here. It's here. It's in my face. It's here to inspire me. So I have this set up because this is stuff I want to use, and it's here to inspire me. These are two of the pieces that I'm getting ready to embellish. You know, and so I have, you know, just random things. I have my brushes out. I have things like, you know, feathers that I find on my walk. We live really close to a pond where a bunch of Canadian geese stay. And every now and again I'll go walking and I find some Canadian geese feathers. I don't know if they'll ever make it into any work, but that's what that's what I have for inspiration. So yeah, I mean, I just keep like a little grouping of stuff. Here's some corks. I'm gonna do something now. What I have been doing is carving stamps out of these corks for my art journal, but I think that I'm gonna do some kind of carving of corks to use as embellishment. So that's why I've got the corks out as well. So that's what I do. I tend to kind of keep stuff in, I try and stow away what I can, because for the most part, what's inspiring to some people might be like minimalism, and I get it, because sometimes the stuff can be overwhelming and you need space to think and breathe. And some people have to have that minimalism to think and breathe. Not me. I've got to have my stuff out. Like here, okay, look at this. This is a tiny little slide of one of my dogs. He's long since gone, but we were doing a photo shoot and I found this outtake slide of him. So I have him here, and I've got, pictures and some glass stuff. Artists have stuff sometimes. I've got stuff. So I try to keep stuff put away, and then I'll pull it out and just kind of set it around and just let that be part of my creative space. And that just gives me inspiration. All right, so since I'm on my handheld, I haven't been able to see comments. I'm over at my computer, so I'm gonna look really quick if you guys have any questions. Hi, Marilyn, Kathy, Marie Helene, and Kim. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. All right, hey Stacy, if you can change my hoarder habits in my LTA, I'll buy a champagne. Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to get the champagne, because as you can see, I'm a bit of a hoarder myself. So yeah, but I think to kind of keep that hoarder look at this. Check this out. This is what underneath my drafting table looks like. This is I've been working in a shibori class, so I've got some stuff for shibori supplies here. I've got more old journals here. I've got stationery supplies. I've got computer supplies, and I've got my sewing kit, as well as, I don't know if you can see, I've got a stash of handmade paper for photo backgrounds. Yeah. Oh, and underneath this, okay, look, underneath this desk, this is where I store a bunch of my rocks and crystals. So I'll keep, this little batch out here. And then if I want to change it up, I go underneath my desk and grab out a new stack. So I don't know if I'm helping you with your hoarder stuff, because I kind of do it. So my advice is to stash it away and then pull out what you need for inspiration. And make it look like it's a part of a design, like a, interior design thing. All right. Kim says, I love using vintage glass to store things. I use a cut glass dish to hold my double pointed needles. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I get it. Look at this. This was a flower vase. I don't know if you can see. It's like a cut glass flower vase. And I took the little top off, and that's where I store my needles that I never use. And then this was actually like an incense burner, but I've been keeping my crochet hooks. And then things like, this right here, this is my grandmother's jewelry box. See, and it's got her watches in it. Her, who knows? Maybe one day I'll weave her watches into a piece of art, or embellish with them. And I also have her rosary. So this is, and then these are my graduation tassels. But yeah, I keep my grandmother's jewelry box out because, I'd like to think she inspires me. Oh, look at this. This is another good storage solution. All right, I found that this is one of those over the door shoe holders. And I found that this was an excellent way to hold some of my cone yarns. So I keep my real sparkly cone yarns here. See, here and here. So that's where I store that. Otherwise, and then like I said, I started to store my finished pieces because I decided that having them put away, that I wasn't seeing them. So to have them hanging up, I'm kind of, even if I stand back and look at them as a whole, I can kind of see how they're all, you know, how the similarities between them and the progression and how I'm progressing as far as a body of work. So I really like having my pieces out so I can see them. Oh, and then here's another thing. So much stuff. You see, I'm a hoarder too. Um, this is a bunch of crazy, just paper stuff that I keep. Like I've got. What's this? Oh, this box I thought was really cute. I like the pattern on that. I've got little pieces of origami paper. This is stuff that I use in my art journal. Sometimes I'll just take a bunch of stuff and just go on random pages and paste it down, and that gives me a little bit of a base for working in my art journal. So that's where I keep stuff like that. Anyway, but like I said, if I'm going to get ready to work, then I kind of put things here, in the space, and then work with it. And as I decide I'm not going to be using something, then I'll put it up and maybe I'll bring something back out. So there it is. That's how I do it. Anyway, so I would love to hear from you guys. I know a couple of you guys have posted some really cool pictures of your storage solutions, and those are awesome. But yeah, how do you store stuff? What do you like to do? How do you store things too in a way that feels like in a way that feels like you're inspired by your stuff? Because honestly, I mean, I know so many artists that I know, we collect stuff. I mean, like I said, it's either something that's inspirational or maybe it's going to be repurposed into art. So there you have it. Yeah. Anyway, Marilyn says, you're not a hoarder, you're an artist. Artists need stuff. Exactly, Marilyn, right? Exactly. So, I mean, that being said, I try to go through stuff and get rid of what I need to, but yeah. And usually it tends to be like it was at the beginning of the month, where I had to unhinge the log jam and get rid of some stuff. So that's how I do it. It's a lot of stuff that I keep out, and it's stuff that I keep in. Oh wait, here, let me show you this. These are some of the art supplies that I use regularly. So I have, I try to keep stuff that I use handy, and then put it away. And if I'm finding that it no longer serves, then I'll get rid of it. Oh, I also have like, here's a yarn bowl that I don't use. And this is just like, as much as I go through this bowl of stuff, I tell you, it must be reproducing, because I'll go through and I'll get rid of things, and then it seems like I can never empty that bowl. And then I have a wooden bowl that's the same way. So I don't know that I would necessarily call my AAA batteries inspirational. Yeah. Or this hook that that has, where I accidentally tore part of the wall off with it. Yeah, I don't think I'd call that inspirational either. But it's like, oh, this hook, I gotta keep it. Maybe I should keep it because it's, I'm gonna use it now. Look, watch this. I'm throwing this away right now. There it is. But yeah, that's how I keep my stuff. Anyway, so yeah, if you have pictures, share them. Share it in the comments. I don't know if you can share pictures in the comments here. I know you can share pictures in the comments on the Facebook page. I think the Facebook page had some pictures in it, and as well as in the comments on the blog posts, where I will put show notes of things that I mentioned here. I'm trying to think of them. I'll have to watch through and see if I mentioned stuff. Anyway, there you have it. So that's what I do. Anyway, so yeah, share with me how you like to do it. Do you have a bowl of bits of yarn or thread that you save for spinning? Yes. And I don't know if you saw this at the beginning. I showed this to you guys earlier. It's this trifle bowl, and I've got all that the little bits of yarn. Well, I've got, see, I have all this yarn that I haven't wound in the skeins yet. But yeah, these are all my yarn bits. Like I said, it's either thrums or loom waste. Now this isn't a yarn bit. This was a journal cover, but I'm gonna go repurpose this yarn, and then it's got these ceramic buttons on it that I love. So, but otherwise, yeah, this is where I keep all the little bits of stuff that I card back into my yarn. So that's it. That's what I got. Anyway, so yeah, if you've got some ideas, or if you just want to share with us how you like to keep your stuff, I always find seeing creative spaces. I find that inspiring, seeing how other people like to create, because then you kind of see, usually with creative spaces, I mean, you kind of get a sense of when you see where people work. You know, that in and of itself is inspiring. So yeah, share a picture with me of your space. I'd love to see it, of your storage. And otherwise, I guess that's it. I'll see you guys next week. If there aren't any more questions, I'm going to look one more time. And I don't see any other questions. So anyway, have a good Wednesday. Share with me